How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the Change-Up. It's March 29th, 2025. The New York Yankees are playing the Milwaukee Brewers on opening weekend, and in a single afternoon, something happens that nobody expects. The Yankees hit a lot of home runs. Well, okay, I guess maybe people expect that, but 9? In one game? That's pretty crazy. And it's not just the number of home runs, it's also who hit them. Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, sure got it. Austin Wells, okay. Paul Goldschmidt and Anthony Volpe? Huh. They must have magic bats. And magic bats they did have, or at least according to the internet at the time. Within 24 hours, every team in the league is on the phone with their equipment guys. The internet absolutely loses its mind. And a 45-year-old physicist nobody has ever heard of suddenly has cameras in his face for the first time in his life. His name is Aaron Leonhardt, and he made the bat that broke baseball. To understand the Torpedo bat, you first have to understand the guy who built it. Because Aaron Leonhardt is not a former player, or a hitting coach, or a baseball guy really at all. He's a physicist. Leonhardt got his undergrad degree in electrical engineering from the University of Michigan, then went on to earn his doctorate in physics from MIT. He spent 7 years as a professor at Michigan teaching physics and publishing research. And then, at some point, he decided he wanted to work in baseball. He started at the bottom, independent leagues, community college programs, before eventually working his way into the Yankees organization in 2018. His job was essentially to be the translator between the analytics department and the players on the field, take the smart math numbers and make them useful to the normal people. And in 2022, he started asking a very simple question. League-wide batting average in 2022 was at its lowest point in more than 50 years, and strikeouts were at an all-time high. Pitching had gotten so good that hitters were beginning to struggle to keep up. So Leonhardt started talking to hitters, and what they told him was simple. We're not making contact where we want to. He asked them to point to their sweet spot, the place on the bat where they were actually trying to hit the ball. And almost every hitter pointed to a spot about 6 or 7 inches down from the tip of the barrel. Then he held up a traditional bat, and everybody in the room realized the same thing at the same time. The fattest part of the bat, where all the wood mass is concentrated, is at the tip, but the sweet spot is closer to the hands. The two things didn't match. Leonhardt described the moment like this. Everybody just looked at each other and said, well, let's flip it around. It's going to look silly, but are we willing to go with it? That was the original concept. Move the mass to where the hitter is actually trying to make contact. It almost sounds too obvious, and that's exactly the point. But all this didn't happen overnight. Leonhardt spent 2 full years developing, testing, and refining the design with players who were willing to be, in his words, patient zero. The Yankees weren't announcing anything. Players were testing early prototypes quietly in batting practice. Nobody was talking about it publicly. And then Giancarlo Stanton got his hands on one. Stanton already had the fastest bat speed in baseball, 81.2 miles per hour, nearly 3 miles per hour ahead of the second fastest swinger in the league. Leonhardt's logic made sense to him. A bat that puts more mass where the damage actually happens was something Stanton was willing to try. So in October of 2022, in the playoffs, Stanton quietly started using it. The variation he used wasn't quite as dramatically different looking as the ones that followed, but the results spoke for themselves. He hit 7 home runs in 14 postseason games, a franchise record for the Yankees. Nobody noticed the bat though. Not yet. That brings us back to March 29th, 2025. The Yankees put up 20 runs against the Brewers that day, and across the opening 3-game series, they hit 15 home runs total, tying the MLB record for most home runs in an opening series. Meanwhile, Aaron Judge, arguably the best hitter in baseball, did his own damage that weekend, to the tune of 4 home runs. However, he did so using a completely standard bat. When asked whether he'd switch, he said exactly what you'd expect. The past couple of seasons kind of speak for itself. Why try to change something? The morning after that 9-homer game, every team in baseball was paying attention. The Atlanta Braves reportedly put in an order for Torpedo bats before their next game. The Baltimore Orioles hitting coach said publicly that if you walked into any of the 30 clubhouses in baseball, you'd find guys experimenting with one. One bat manufacturer said half of their MLB clients called within a week of opening day asking for a Torpedo model. And the question on everybody's mind was the same. Is this legal? MLB Rule 3.02 says a bat has to be a smooth, round stick no more than 2.61 inches in diameter at the thickest part and no more than 42 inches long, one piece of solid wood. The Torpedo bat hit every single one of those marks. Commissioner Rob Manfred said it publicly. The bats comply with the rules, end of story. He also added something that perfectly summed up the whole moment, and I'll paraphrase here, that the frenzy around these bats says more about baseball's relationship with tradition than it does about the bats themselves. In other words, relax, it's just a different shaped piece of wood. But did the numbers actually move? Okay, so now a year has passed, the hype has cooled down, and the cameras have moved on. We have real actual data now. Researchers looked at 18 players who adopted the Torpedo bat in 2025 and compared their performance to the previous season across exit velocity, batting average, slugging percentage, home run rate, and OPS. Here's what they found. 61% of Torpedo bat users saw an increase in average exit velocity. More than half, 55.5%, saw their home run rate jump by at least 20%. And across all the stats in the study, the MLB average for Torpedo bat users increased, suggesting a net positive impact. Those aren't world-changing numbers, but they're definitely real, and for specific players, the gains were very significant. Cal Raleigh is maybe the most interesting case study. Nowadays, I think he uses the bat for both sides, but at the time anyway, he used the Torpedo bat only when hitting left-handed. And from that side, his slugging percentage jumped over 28%. His barrel rate, the rate at which he's making the ideal contact combination of exit velocity and launch angle, went from 15.4% to 21.8%, a 41.5% increase. Anthony Volpe's hard hit rate jumped from 35% in 2024 to 48% in 2025. His average bat speed increased by more than 3 miles per hour, and his home run rate per at-bat jumped by over 87%. Jazz Chisholm saw a 56% increase in home runs per at-bat. His fly ball rate went from 25% to 37.3%, meaning he's lifting the ball more, which is exactly what the bat is designed to help with. And then there's Daniel Schneemann, a Cleveland Guardians rookie who had mostly struggled at the plate in his first season. With the Torpedo bat in 2025, he eclipsed his previous home run total while posting an .839 OPS over 39 games. We can't be 100% certain, but we can assume that a lot of these guys' offensive improvements came from using a bat tailored more to their strengths. But not everybody benefited in the same way. Alec Boehm went from a .280 batting average in 2024 down to a .273, his slugging also noticeably dropping. William Contreras went from a 140 WRC+, all the way down to a 101. And one unnamed player reportedly tried the Torpedo bat for a single at-bat, struck out, and then threw it in the trash. And this is the part that never really got covered when the first story broke. The Torpedo bat is not a universal upgrade. It works exceptionally well for a certain swing type and certain hitters. For others, it changes the feel and the balance of the bat in a way that disrupts what they've spent years learning. The Torpedo bat is a tool, and like any tool, it depends entirely on who's using it. So, speaking of which, who did use it? By mid-2025, over 20 MLB players had used the Torpedo bat in at least one game. Confirmed users included Cal Raleigh, Jazz Chisholm, Elly De La Cruz, Francisco Lindor, Kyle Stowers, Dansby Swanson, and Nico Horner, among others. Bat manufacturers reported that demand remained strong well past the opening weekend frenzy. Orders were still coming in from nearly every level of play. And MLB The Show added Torpedo bats to the game in May of 2025, which is honestly the clearest possible signal that something has entered the mainstream. The Chicago Cubs and Baltimore Orioles were identified as the teams who had invested the most time and money into bat geometry research beyond just the Torpedo design. The Orioles' assistant general manager, a former NASA engineer, had apparently been pushing Torpedo-style bats on his players since 2023. This wasn't just a Yankees thing, and it never really was. The Yankees just happened to be the first ones who blew it up publicly. Now here's the real question. How much of this is the bat, and how much of this is believing that you'll do well with the bat? This is something that didn't get talked about enough when the story first broke. A sports science expert at Boston University estimated the real physical performance gained from the Torpedo bat at around 5%. Their word for it was marginal. And one MLB executive, speaking anonymously, called it mostly a placebo effect. So which is it? Real performance tool? Or the most expensive placebo in baseball history? Realistically, it's probably a little bit of both. The physics are real. Moving mass to the sweet spot does create the conditions for harder contact at the location where the hitter is trying to make contact. Of course, depending on the hitter's swing path, it might not help everyone, but the science does back up the fact that it would help some hitters. But there's something else going on too. When a player picks up a new bat and genuinely believes it's going to help them, something changes in their approach. They're more confident, they swing differently, they commit harder to the pitches in their zone. The mental side of hitting is enormous, and anyone who's played the game at any level knows that. So with all that said, 1 year later, did the Torpedo bats actually work? The honest answer is it depends on who's swinging it. For Cal Raleigh, absolutely. For Anthony Volpe, yeah. For Alec Boehm and William Contreras, probably not. And for Aaron Judge, he'll never need to know. What we do know is that it's still here. Players are still using it, manufacturers are still making it, and teams are still studying it. The Torpedo bat didn't revolutionize baseball in the way that the internet declared it would opening weekend of 2025. But it also didn't disappear the way skeptics predicted. It settled into what it actually is, a legitimate tool that works for certain hitters developed by a physicist who asked a question nobody else had the thought to ask. Aaron Leonhardt is back in Miami now doing his job as a field coordinator for the Marlins, and probably already working on the next big thing. He said it himself, at the end of the day it's about the batter, not the bat. But sometimes the bat matters too. Thank you all so much for watching my video, it really does mean a lot to me. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so I know that you guys enjoyed this type of thing. And make sure to keep your eyes out for some more videos. I try to post a video about once a week. So until next time, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.